everyone, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my 16th 100 Epic Reads of a Lifetime reading vlog. So for the month of September, I am reading The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, and so far I am officially halfway through the novel. Now, a little bit of backstory on my personal experience with The Kite Runner. I was given a choice in high school to either read The Book of Negroes or The Kite Runner. So half the class read The Kite Runner, half the class read The Book of Negroes. I read The Book of Negroes and had to write my essay on it. The only thing I got from The Kite Runner was people told me the plot, and we were watching the film adaptation while I was in class, but I was busy writing my essay during that time because I thought, I don't need to watch the movie, this is not what my essay's on. So that is my experience with The Kite Runner, so I have been aware of it for quite some time, and now the poster is finally making me read it. The story takes place in Afghanistan in the 1980s during a huge political upheaval, and is the story of a friendship between the main character Ali and his friend Hassan, who is a different ethnic group than him and is technically considered his servant, him and his father. So the story is a lot to do with the relationship between those two, the relationship of all the fathers and the sons, the relationship of race and class, and of course the bullying that Hassan faces because of all of these issues. And so far the writing is very simple. It's nothing really exciting for me. The characters are very like what they are. They're very like laid out. I understand everything that's going on. There is good sense of theming, good ties to the political situation going on, and all of the tragedy that is currently going on as a result of it. But the book is just really, really sad. It is not an enjoyable read. It is just a tragedy so far. There isn't a lot of hope connected to it. There is a few scenes of them actually doing the kite running, but for the most part it is overshadowed by just the saddest things you can think of. Not just the bigotry that the characters face, but the sexual assault one of the characters faces, and now the fact that all of them are at gunpoint because of the political upheaval, and they are struggling in their own country. It is just really, really sad and not enjoyable to read. I know there's a lot of people who really want that really deep-rooted catharsis and like tragedy and sadness to really understand other places that or other time periods that they don't know about, but it is a bummer to read. It is not an enjoyable read. It is really, really sad. So I'm hoping that the second half of the novel has a bit more going on than just all of this tragedy and the characters responding to that tragedy. Obviously it is a good book, but that's my opinion of it so far. So stay tuned for my final thoughts after I scratch it off of the poster. Stay tuned. Okay, so I have finished The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, and I am only giving the novel 2 stars. Essentially, the second half of the novel is the main character and his father, after escaping the turmoil in Afghanistan, move to America, and then, of course, the American dream doesn't work out for them. They're pretty poor. His father gets cancer and dies. He gets married, and then, oh no, they can't have children. And then the end of the novel is him going back to Afghanistan to rescue Hassan's son as a sort of atonement for abandoning him in the first part of the novel when he was a child. This was definitely a book I did not connect with. I'm not a huge fan of putting every possible sad thing into a novel as this sort of like, see how hard it is to live life like this. Isn't it so tragic? He can't even get married because, oh no, they can't have children. It's such a hard life for him. Constant over and over again, not even a moment of brevity except for the kite scene. It's just so like melodramatic in a negative way, and not really a way that's capturing me emotionally. I was very bored by it, and I was getting a little bit tired of just the incessant tragedy and trauma of it all. It was not in a way where I find it like interesting to learn about or even like cathartic for emotions. No, it was all just very, isn't this so sad? Give me awards. Give me awards for my sad story, because isn't life so beautiful despite the fact that all of this has happened? I don't know, I just don't connect with that very much. Well, that book is now over, and I now have 11 books off of the poster to choose from. Unfortunately, I'm not excited for any of them, and I have left a lot of the really, really long books left over, so I will definitely not be meeting my goal of finishing the poster by 2025. But I guess 2026 isn't that bad either. I will only have about 9 books to read for 2026, which isn't crazy. But as for what I am reading next month, I don't know. I don't really want to read anything off of the poster anymore. There is nothing that is exciting to me, so I will just have to pick one. So stay tuned for then. Okay, so for the month of October, I'm reading the scariest book I could think of, and that is Cutting for Stone by Abraham Verghese. So far, I am on the last quarter of it, and I have only just updated you now because I have had absolutely nothing to say about this novel. This is a story about a man named Marion who wants to find out the truth about his birth parents, who ended up being an Indian nurse and an American doctor who were in Ethiopia helping people out, and they had an affair, and she died giving birth to twins who were attached at the head. So Marion and his twin brother Shiva, this is about their life and trying to figure out what happened to their parents. Along the way, they both end up becoming doctors, and so a lot of it from all of the characters is just descriptions of surgical procedures tied in with a bunch of stuff that happens in their life. And oh my god, I don't care. I really don't care about anything going on in here. I normally do not like medical descriptions. I don't like seeing it or hearing about it. It's just icky. And so reading about them in great detail has been fun. I love reading all of the great detail of someone having kidney stones and someone giving birth to conjoined twins and just stuff like that. None of the characters in here are particularly captivating. I don't like anything that's been going on. I don't care about anything going on. I didn't care about his birth parents. I don't care about his adoptive parents. I don't care about his relationship with his twin brother. And I certainly don't care about his relationship with this random girl that they're both entangled with. And everything that happens to her is just awful. Like, there is no real enjoyment to be had in this novel. I do not like novels like this, like, oh, what a life, but oh, what a tragedy, but oh, so much going on. All of the characters you meet in your life, oh, so much going on to everybody happening in your life. Oh, tragedy happens everywhere. Oh, isn't this so sad? I don't care. Can you captivate me in some way? Can you interest me in some way? Can anything happen to these characters that matters and, like, I feel compelled by? No? Cool. Here's a whole bunch of pages of somebody having gout or, like, getting their intestines untwisted inside their body. I don't know. I don't like this. I really don't like this book at all. I hadn't even heard about it before the poster. It was on the poster and I looked it up and I was like, who the hell put this on the poster? Like, this poster has kind of the greatest reads of all time, apparently. And a lot of these are just modern garbage. This was released in 2009, so to me this is modern. This is just boring, and I never, ever would have picked this up if it weren't for the poster forcing me to read this. So if you like this book, I'm sorry, this is something I would have never picked up. I'm wrapping up my thoughts right now because I don't think I'll have anything different to say at the end. So this is just some unknown piece of garbage that I was forced to read. I didn't even know about it, like, in passing in culture or anything. I've never heard of this book before. I certainly will not be keeping it when it's done. So look forward to the scratches and me giving it at least the final rating. I'll at least give you that clip, but it'll be very quick. So let's try another book. Now, I'd like to skip to next month, please. I don't want to finish this. Okay, I have finally finished Cutting for Stone by Abraham Verghese, and I gave it 1 star. I think this book was just made worse because I had read The Kite Runner last month, and it's the same sort of story set in completely different time periods, completely different countries, completely different circumstances. However, it was the same themes and framing of, oh, life is so magical, even though all the worst things in the world happen to humans. Oh my gosh, what a life. And I just do not like books like this. I like how dark it's getting because it's very symbolic. There we go, there's the light again. So it was very symbolic of my feelings on this story. I thought that this story was a waste of my time, and I really don't like that the poster made me read it because there was not really any purpose to this. I think this was published a bit late, and I think it was just a random filler for the poster. Gus just settled into his box. That was all the noise. Thankfully, I have already started to forget Cutting for Stone as I am listening to my next book already, so we will do this whole thing again. Hello, it is still October and I am currently reading 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I am currently 25% of the way through, and it is once again another magical realism story. This story is set in a village who was built by the main character and his wife, and it is the story about his eccentricism, his just weird ability to get obsessed with things. He's already become obsessed with a person who used to come in. They use the G word. He used to come in and like show the main character all these wacky inventions, and he became obsessed with becoming an alchemist. That has stopped. He is now currently obsessed with music, and the rest of his family are all eccentric in many different ways. One of the members of his family likes to eat dirt, so that's fun. And it is just kind of a fairy tale-like magical realism story. We are going from one character to the other. There is a lot going on. There is a lot of weird character development. A lot of them are currently trying to enter marriages, and there was just the story of the characters in the village going to war. So there's a lot of complicated things happening in the story, and it is really, really nice to listen to. I found that reading Love in the Time of Cholera on paper wasn't the best way to read it because it's very dreamy, very fairy tale-like, very descriptive, and 100 Years of Solitude is definitely more in the kind of wacky fairy tale magical realism side of things. Love in the Time of Cholera was a bit more grounded. This one you really need in the ear. You really want a story to be told to you because of all the sort of wacky things going on and all of the characters that you could possibly mix up, because a lot of them have very similar names. So that is my update for now. I am glad to have been moving past Cutting for Stone, and I'm trying something else. So let's see how that goes. So I finished 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and I'm only giving it 3 stars. It was totally fine for what it was, and I'm not going to consider it one of my favorite novels that I've read off the poster, but it is pretty standard stuff. It was pretty good. It was an interesting look at 7 generations of a family where just wild stuff would happen to them, a lot of dreamlike stuff, a lot of very, very interesting looks at the way she sees something. Let's see. What do you see? What do you see, boo-boo? As I was saying, it was an interesting look at many of the different ways that these characters went through life, like the very, very first patriarch of the family being obsessed with alchemy, and then the following generations being soldiers, eventually breaking down and retreating into themselves. Of course, the book being 100 Years of Solitude, a lot of it was describing the characters and how they eventually just went inwards into themselves. I found a lot of the female characters were way more interesting, Like, I liked Ursula a lot, and I liked the girl who was raised to believe that she was a princess. I liked her a lot as well. I just can't remember her name at the moment. But yeah, it was a pretty standard, pretty average book that I read off of the poster, and I'm okay that I read it, honestly, all things considered. I just don't have a lot to say about it, unfortunately. So let's see what I do in November for finishing off this vlog. Here we are in November, and therefore the last book that I have to read off of the poster for the year. Yippee! I'm ending it on a book called The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. Some mid-2000s, was on the New York Times bestseller list for 95 weeks. Just positive, life-affirming, religious, adjacent drivel. I am listening to the audiobook for the novel, and every single chapter is less than 8 minutes long, and it's just little vignettes of this main character's life. The main character is named Eddie. At least the author said at the beginning of the novel that Eddie is based on his uncle, so there's some actual merit there, but otherwise this is all just sentimental nonsense, and it is only 5 hours long, thankfully, so I'm going to be able to push through this in a couple of days, and then it will be promptly forgotten, and I can move on with the final 8 novels, the 8 giants, basically, that I have to read off of the poster. So there honestly isn't much to say about this novel. I said basically everything that there is to it. I am currently on the 3rd person that he meets in heaven, and each person has been telling him little lessons, and if their lives changed as a result of him, whether they knew him or not, yada yada yada, same old stuff, you know. This is just not my kind of book. And I understand this is a bit of an anticlimactic ending to my video, to my reading for the year off of the poster, but I wanted something easy, okay? My final 8 books are not going to be easy, except probably the very, very last one. I gave myself some grace on that one. So that is so far my update for my reading in November. I will see you soon with any final thoughts I might have outside of this, but I only have 2.5 hours left of the audiobook, so I have no idea what will change. Stay tuned. Okay, so here we are at the end of the vlog. I have finished The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom, and I'm only giving that book 1 star. Thankfully, it was super, super short, and it didn't really affect me in the days that I had to read it. However, I don't think one of the lessons of your book should be if your father hits you and neglects you, you should forgive him because he had a life before you. No, I don't agree with that lesson at all. As for the rest of that novel, it was just this typical, usual, sentimental, emotional stuff about love, forgiveness, taking it day by day, and eventually being like, you didn't waste your life, you had an effect on everybody. So it was pretty standard stuff, and I did not like it, of course. So I'm glad that it's out of the way, and now I can finish the year off with a completely clean slate and go into the new year where I will be finishing the poster. We only have 8 books left, so I won't be doing the quarterly vlogs like I usually do. I believe I will do 1 vlog halfway through the year and 1 vlog at the end of the year. Who knows about my plans going into 2026, however. And as for all of the books that I read this month, I don't think I liked a single one. I don't think I found a favorite out of any of these. The Kite Runner was fine and just what I expected. I did not like Cutting for Stone. I thought 100 Years of Solitude was okay, and I did enjoy listening to it. However, it was not something that is going to be something that I think about for very, very long. And The 5 People You Meet in Heaven was atrocious. So I did a very much mid-low this quarter. So I'm hoping that for my final vlogs of this post poster, I will find something that I really truly connect with and something that I truly love. But that is for next year. That is next year's problem. Thank you so much for following me on this journey with my poster this year. I hope you enjoyed all these silly little vlogs. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all next year. Bye bye.